Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. This is the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Uh, we got some interesting stories to talk about today. We got James Gunn doing James Gunn things, Ted Sarandos standing on business and such the things and other such things, and a lot more. So let's get into it. We don't need a preamble. You don't care about what I've done today. You don't care about what I had to eat for dinner. We can just talk about the news. And that's what we're going to do. First up, McKenna Grace has been cast in the live-action Scooby-Doo Netflix series. Speaking of Ted Sarandos, so let's read this Variety article here. McKenna Grace is joining the Scooby-Doo live-action series at Netflix. Variety has learned from sources. Grace will star as a young Daphne Blake in the show, which will delve into how the mystery gang first met each other. Netflix picked up the show for 8 episodes in March 2025. The official logline for the show describes it as a modern reimagining of the popular cartoon show. During their final summer at camp, old friends Shaggy and Daphne Grace get embroiled in a haunting mystery surrounding a lonely lost Great Dane puppy that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder. The logline reads, together with the pragmatic and scientific Townie, I don't even know what that means, Velma, and the strange but ever so handsome new kid Freddy, they set out to solve the case that is pulling each of them into a creepy nightmare that threatens to expose all of their secrets. So there we have it, right? Netflix is doing a live-action Scooby-Doo series. I think I knew about this, but I'd kind of forgotten about it until I read this casting here. And I mean, it's good casting, right? McKenna Grace, she's a rising star, so to speak, in Hollywood right now. She was in hit films like Five Nights at Freddy's and Regretting You. I haven't seen either of those. Or no, I watched Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't seen Regretting You, and she's good. She's one of those actresses that I don't think she's given like an Oscar award winning performance or anything like that. But anytime I see her in a movie, I always go, yeah, I like her. She's charismatic. She has good screen presence. And I'm sure she'll be good as Daphne. Now I wonder who else they're gonna cast. I mean, I think isn't she dating Mason Thames or whatever? I guess he could be a good Freddy. I don't know who could be Velma. Just trying to think of. I mean, I don't want to get like stereotypical with like Netflix adaptations of old shows, and I don't know, maybe Jenna Ortega. Although I feel like she might be a little too big to join a Scooby-Doo show at this point. I feel like she could maybe be a good Velma. I don't know. I'm bad at castings, okay? Who should be Shaggy? Finn Wolfhard? I don't know. Listen, I'm not good at this. Yeah, I think she'll be good. Honestly, the more interesting story here is, can Netflix make a good live-action Scooby-Doo show? I mean, I brought up Jenna Ortega earlier, but I feel like if they can do something, I wonder if Wednesday should maybe be the template, right? Because I haven't seen that show, but I can understand and appreciate that it's a show that managed to attract like adults that like the Addams Family, and managed to attract new audiences of like young teens that just really enjoyed the show and fell in love with Jenna Ortega and fell in love with the vibe of that show. Like, from what I understand, again, I haven't seen it, Wednesday is like a really good example of actually making a good modern version of an old thing. I feel like they should really be looking at Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. I remember that was a really cool cartoon when I was a kid. Maybe it doesn't hold up as well as I remember it, but I remember that was like a really cool cartoon that kind of had a bit more of an edge to it, took itself a little bit more seriously. I feel like that kind of tone could work well for a live action Netflix show, but we'll see. I mean, Netflix has a very spotty track record when it comes to live action adaptations of stuff, right? Like, they'll do something that, again, I haven't seen, but is really beloved, like One Piece. They'll do something that's kind of mid, like the Avatar The Last Airbender live action version. Or they'll do something god awful, like the Death Note movie. Like, Netflix is a mixed bag. I don't think that Netflix is like an immediate, it's going to be terrible. But it's also not like an HBO where I hear that HBO is adapting something and I inherently have higher expectations. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right. Next up, this is a really interesting story. Bioshock. It's back, guys. Both the video game and the movie. So let's read this report from Collider. So Bioshock movie update finally surfaces after 3 years of delays. Video game movies and television series are continuing to thrive as of late. Hold on, let me see if I can get more of the thing here. Video game movies and television series are continuing to thrive of late, yet one that has continued to struggle to get off the ground has been Bioshock. As far as the 2010s... Oh, wait, let me just skip over to what I highlighted. More recently, since 2022... Francis Lawrence has been attached to the Passion Project with a script by Michael Green. So this is the latest iteration of the movie. Yet it's been met by one delay after another between the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, rewrites, changes in Netflix, and other projects on the docket for the director, like his recent Stephen King adaptation, The Long Walk. The movie hasn't been abandoned, though, and according to producer Roy Lee, things may finally get underway soon. So this is a quote from the producer. We would have gotten it made a few years back, but then other movies got in the way, with one being The Long Walk and the other being the Hunger Games prequel, which comes out this December. We're just waiting for him to finish post-production, because he's going to be working on it through at least September, and then jump back into it. I know that Netflix and Take-Two are very anxious to see the movie come out because they want to have the release coincide with some of the potential new incarnations of the game. And then he went on to say this as well. It's steadily on the path, but you know how it goes. So many things could get in the way, but I know that the intent is to hopefully get in production next year. So I find this all very fascinating because he's basically not just saying that A, we're still working on the movie, and that B, it's possible that it goes into production relatively quick. He's also basically revealing that the new Bioshock game is relatively close to coming out. And not only is it relatively close to coming out, like, it's so close to coming out that Take-Two is pushing the director of the movie to get a roll on with it because we want to have some synergy. We want to have the movie come out along with a new game. So that's very interesting because Bioshock is a game that, there's been a new Bioshock game in development, not created by the original creator. I forget his name. He's working on his own thing. He's working on his own game called Judas. But there's been like a new Bioshock game that has been reportedly in development. I think it takes place in like Alaska or something. And we've heard about it, but it's just not really come to fruition. So I'm kind of, his name is Ken Levine. That's the guy who originally made the first two Bioshock games. I don't know how much faith I have in a new Bioshock game not directed by Ken Levine, just because Ken Levine is such a singular artist. Like, his games truly do feel like Ken Levine games, and I don't know if another director can really come in and recapture that. But I'm certainly curious. I mean, I'll obviously check out a new Bioshock game. And then you get into the other thing of, can this thing even really be adapted into a movie? So it's directed by the guy that directed, I believe, all the Hunger Games movies since Catching Fire. He also directed The Long Walk, which I actually really loved The Long Walk last year. So he's a solid director, but I haven't seen anything from him that makes me think he can tackle Bioshock. Because for people that haven't played the game, Bioshock is not like The Last of Us, right? Bioshock is a really cool game with a fantastic story, but it's not told in a cinematic fashion. The story of Bioshock is told through environmental storytelling when you're exploring the game and you're sort of learning about the history of the place that Bioshock takes place in. You know, you're finding like audio logs and old records, and that's like that. The story is told through gameplay, right? Through exploration. That's not that wouldn't really work necessarily for a movie, right? In a movie, you have to tell a more like a direct story, and that type of translation is going to be challenging for any director. It is going to have to force a director to sort of think outside the box, like, how can I incorporate some of this stuff in the narrative of a movie? How do I like take this and put it into a more linear narrative without losing what makes Bioshock special? Also, Bioshock is just really weird. Like, the tone of Bioshock is very unique. Again, it's very singular. You know, the director of, you know, that's directing the movie is very standard in some ways. Like, he's not a weird director. So I don't know. But I am very curious, and we'll see what comes of it. All right. Next up, we got some Paramount, Warner Brothers / Netflix stuff. So we've been talking a lot about how Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. They came to a deal to do it, but now Paramount just won't go away. So Warner Brothers has now officially put the gauntlet down, and they are telling Paramount that they need to just make a final offer. So this is coming from the Manila Times. Warner Brothers gives Paramount 1 week to outbid Netflix. Warner Brothers Discovery said on Tuesday it will give Paramount Skydance a week to sweeten its buyout offer for the storied media giant, as the bidding war with Netflix turned into a bitter battle to win over Warner shareholders. The 7 days of discussions, scheduled to end February 23rd, are designed to give Paramount Skydance a chance to make its best and final offer. Warner Brothers Discovery said in a statement that stressed it prefers the Netflix merger and has scheduled a special shareholders meeting to vote on it on March 20th. So, yeah, I mean, Paramount honestly, it's just annoying at this point. It's like this whole story is just kind of annoying, but it seems like we are reaching a conclusion, right? On February 23rd, Paramount is going to like throw the gauntlet down and be like, hey, this is the most that we were going to be willing to pay for Netflix or to pay for Warner Brothers. And then Netflix will then have the option to match it. We're going to see. I don't necessarily think that Paramount is out of the running, because at the end of the day, if you offer enough money, then I don't know how the Warner Brothers board and executives and whatever are going to be able to deny it. But I don't know. I also, my instinct is telling me that Paramount is just being kind of desperate here, and Netflix and Warner Brothers like each other. They want to merge. Obviously, Netflix has a lot of money, so they'll probably be able to match whatever Paramount offers. But also, I'm an idiot, and I don't know anything about business, and I don't know anything about the big fat cats in Hollywood running studios, and I don't know anything. So who cares what I really have to say about this? But at the end of the day, on February 23rd, hopefully this will all be clear about what's going to happen. If I'm being honest, at this point I'm kind of rooting for Netflix. I mean, I don't want anybody to buy Warner Brothers, of course, but you know, Paramount has been doing some things when it comes to politics and censoring people that I'm not a huge fan of. So I'm not super jazzed about them like owning CNN or whatever. And then, you know, if you look at the facts of the matter, if Paramount buys Warner Brothers, more people are going to lose jobs than if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, because as of right now, Netflix is like not a not a traditional theatrical studio. So according to Netflix, if they buy Warner Brothers, they are basically just going to keep Warner Brothers intact, and they are essentially going to add a theatrical distribution arm to their current business model. So if Netflix were to buy Warner Brothers, way less people would end up losing their jobs. And apparently they're even saying that they're going to keep HBO, which that part I really find hard to believe. The idea that HBO isn't just going to get rolled into Netflix. I don't know if I believe that part. But in general, I don't know. I think at this point, I don't want anybody to buy Warner Brothers, but if somebody is going to buy Warner Brothers between these two, I think I'd rather it be Netflix. But we will see what happened. And kind of related to this, I did want to play a clip here from Matt Baloney's podcast. What is it called? The Town with Matt Baloney. He actually had on Ted Sarandos, the CEO of Netflix, and Ted Sarandos reiterated that not only are they going to keep the 45-day theatrical window, it is 45 days for Warner Brothers movies in theaters exclusively. Then it's not going to go to HBO Max. It's going to go to PVOD, and then after some time, it's going to go to HBO Max. That's what Ted Sarandos is saying here. We'll just play the clip, and you can judge for yourself.
This is when I say it's going to be traditional. It's going to look like it did last year and the year before.
All right, but let's get you on the record here.
I'm on the record.
45 days. You said we will honor the 45-day window. Does that mean 45 days to HBO Max? Does that mean 45 days to transactional purchases, then premium video on demand, then something like 90 days to HBO Max? What does it mean?
It means 45 days of theatrical exclusivity, which has been the issue that people have been mostly pushing for, and which I think has the most impact.
But the theaters are skeptical of this because they don't want it to go directly to HBO Max or Netflix.
It'll go from theaters to PVOD to HBO Max
with a transactional element in there.
That's the PVOD window, yeah.
No, meaning downloads.
That's the PVOD window, yeah.
Meaning you can own it rather than rent.
Yes. But
okay.
Look at, and again, we've not ironed out what that is going to be. But the core thing that is important is it'll feel traditional in terms of how many days in the theaters and how long to get to HBO Max, or HBO, whatever the time.
Would you agree to put that in writing and guarantee it if it's a condition of this deal?
No, because I'd say because we don't present any concentration risk in this deal. We're 9% of the business growing to 10% of the business, so there is no remedy to do that. But I will tell you that there's none of my competitors will have that in writing or committed to anybody. We're buying a business model, and we're going to continue to invest in it and grow it, not to kill it.
There's a feeling that you're going to.
So, I mean, look, man, maybe they're fibbing here, right? Of course, this isn't, they're not saying this, like, in the court, right? What did they have to testify? I think they testified in front of Congress. When somebody's testifying in front of Congress, you can basically take that in writing. Unless you're in the Trump administration, right? Unless you're Kash Patel, then who cares? Am I right? But if you're somebody like Ted Sarandos, you can basically take it. You can take it to heart. So he's obviously not testifying in court here. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what they are saying. They are saying that they are going to maintain the 45-day theatrical window for Warner Brothers films. They are then going to transition to a PVOD window, and then it's going to go to streaming. If they commit to doing this, and they did testify in court that they are going to keep the traditional 45-day theatrical window, if they continue doing this, I think that they are the better option over Paramount for, all the reasons that I talked about earlier. By the way, I actually highly recommend people watch this interview. It's Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos makes the case for buying Warner Brothers. You do have to give Ted Sarandos some credit here, because he went on this guy's podcast, and this guy was like actually grilling him, actually asking tough questions, actually being combative in a respectful way, right? It didn't turn into a shouting match or anything, but giving a real interview. which, some people might argue doesn't happen a lot with studio executives. Like, we're obviously very geek focused. Wouldn't it be cool to see James Gunn or Kevin Feige or whatever actually come on one of our like geek podcasts and get asked tough questions? Like, again, I kind of have to give Ted Sarandos some credit here, right? Like, James Gunn, let me interview you. I'll be respectful, but I'll ask tough questions, okay? Or, go on like John Roca's show, go on the Hot Mic, go on Christian Harloff, or I don't know, John Campia. Obviously, go somebody relevant, not me. Although maybe if you want to. Because I just feel like so many interviews today, like the vast majority of them, they're just like these like weird, curated softball interviews. Like I remember when James Gunn went, he went on the Zoom call or whatever with like new rock stars, and I don't know, was Emergency Awesome there? A bunch of other like very like safe, very, we'll just say positive towards the DCU channels. Not saying that they're dishonest. Maybe they just really like the DCU. Hey, I've enjoyed every single project in the DCU so far. So not necessarily calling any of those guys out, but like I'm not saying they're being dishonest, but it's very obvious that James Gunn chooses creators to interact with and go on their podcasts and do interviews with them because he knows that they're not going to ask tough questions or push super hard. And I think that's a little lame. And I do give Ted Sarandos some credit here. Sorry. All right. Next story. Chris Hemsworth is saying that there will be more Thor. There will be Thor galore. What will come after Thor 4? So this is coming from an interview that Chris Hemsworth did when he went on a podcast. By the way, he's been going on I think he went on Theo Von or whatever. I don't know why he's going on all these podcasts. I don't know if it's for, oh yeah, he's in that movie Crime 101 that I haven't seen and probably won't see if I'm being honest with you. But let me see. Okay, there we go. Let's read what he had to say. Smartless co-host Sean Hayes marveled that Hemsworth's doomsday turn would mark his 10th outing as the God of Thunder, which prompted the actor to say there are a couple more times still ahead. Oh, there's more? Hayes asked excitedly, and Hemsworth confirmed, yeah, it's wild. Of course, one of those appearances will surely be Avengers Secret Wars, but the actor's comments still give fans hope for a Thor 5. And then there's more. The actor also teased a new evolution in store for Thor and Doomsday and beyond. I was talking to Kevin Feige about it, and he said it's cool because the audience now expects dramatic turns with the character, he said, and whatever we do next, we've got some ideas to do something pretty unique again and hopefully be different. So this shouldn't come as a massive surprise. I mean, I guess it could have been reasonable to think or expect that they would be sending off the Thor character after Avengers Doomsday. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth has been around since the beginning of the MCU. I think he's like 40-something at this point. He's getting older. Does he want to keep, staying in the shape that he gets in? Does he want to keep making these movies? That being said, I also do think that if you're Chris Hemsworth, you don't have a ton going on outside of the MCU. If we're being honest, that Crime 101 movie is kind of bombing right now. So, like, it's not like Chris Hemsworth is like this massive movie star that sells, movies on his own. Not that there really are any movie stars that do that anymore. Let's be real. But yeah, I mean, if you're Chris Hemsworth, you know that if you come back for Marvel, you're going to make a lot of money. Your movie's going to make a lot of money. I mean, I could totally see him wanting to stick around for another 10 years. And I appreciate kind of what he's saying there, where he's like, yeah, when we did those original Brana movies, they were a certain tone, then we completely flipped it with Taika. And I kind of like how he's talking about how they're probably going to completely flip it again with potential Thor 5. Honestly, I'd like to see them. I would really like to see a Thor movie that entirely commits to the tone of Asgard. I mean, I know Asgard doesn't exist, but my favorite aspects of those first two Thor movies were when they were on Asgard, and it was like this sci-fi fantasy, like Shakespearean movie. I always found it annoying whenever they would go to Earth, and it's like, oh, I'm Kat Dennings and I'm quirky or whatever. And I've always not been a huge fan of Taika Waititi Thor. Okay, all you posers out there that are hating on Taika Waititi after Thor: Love and Thunder, I've been here since day one. Okay, I've always been like, eh. Well, let me be clear. I didn't hate Thor Ragnarok. I also didn't hate Thor: Love and Thunder. I think they're both equally not really what I want out of Thor, but I still enjoy them for what they are. But since day one, I've been like, I prefer the old Thor. And if they are going to drastically change tones again, I hope that they don't just go back to the old Thor, but they really lean heavy into the sci-fi, fantasy, Shakespearean Thor that we got on Asgard in the first two Thor movies. That's what I hope they do. I don't know exactly how that'll play out, obviously, because Asgard is destroyed, so I don't know if there are other realms that are like Asgard that Thor can go through and explore. Obviously, there are other mythologies, right? Because Zeus and stuff, and I think there were like Egyptian gods in the MCU, because they revealed that right in Thor: Love and Thunder and in Moon Knight. So I guess there are definitely ways that they could go about it. I guess kind of like God of War, right? Where Kratos goes through different mythologies. They could kind of do that with Thor. So we'll see. We shall see. All right, next up. They have cast Amy in Sonic 4. So Ben Schwartz confirmed this on his Instagram. He says, "We have our Amy Rose, and I could not be more excited. Please welcome the incredible Kristen Bell to the Sonic movie family." So got a cute little picture there where they're holding little toys. And, the Sonic movies, they're not great, but I enjoy them for what they are. And, the performances, honestly, I feel like the voice performances are pretty solid. I think Ben Schwartz does a good job as Sonic. I think that Tails does a good job. Whoever does the voice for Tails, I believe it's the same person that does the voice in the games. You do get some, let's be real, like Idris Elba's kind of sleepwalking through his voice performance. Keanu Reeves probably doesn't know what's happening in the story when he's talking his shadow. The humans, most of them don't care. Right? Like James Marsden is not present in those movies. Jim Carrey, though, giving it his all. Okay, Jim Carrey's loving it. He's given an A+ performance. So I'm not sure what direction Kristen Bell is going to go in. I'm not sure if she's even going to have like the best material to really be able to flex her voice acting muscles with. But we'll see. Regardless of some of the cynical aspects of the Sonic movies, I do generally enjoy them for what they are, even though I'm not really a Sonic fan. All right. Next up, we have our first official plot synopsis of Spider-Man Brand New Day. So, this is coming from a book description for Spider-Man Brand New Day, The Art of the Movie. So, this is an art book. So, let's read it. 4 years have gone by since we last caught up with our friendly neighborhood hero. Peter Parker is no more, but Spider-Man is at the top of his game keeping New York City safe. Things are going well for our anonymous hero until an unusual trail of crimes pulls him into a web of mystery larger than he's ever faced before. In order to take on what's ahead, Spider-Man not only needs to be at the top of his physical and mental game, but he must also be prepared to face the repercussions of his past. As Spider-Man Brand New Day wows moviegoers the world over, discover the behind-the-scenes magic of the film's visual development. From early concept sketches to final character designs, explore environments, costumes, and exclusive insights from the next chapter for Marvel's neighborhood hero. So, a few interesting things there, right? A, we got a confirmation that this movie is going to take place 4 years after the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. That kind of indicates that they are skipping Peter Parker's college days. That's an interesting choice. I think I'm okay with it because I can see the logic of Destin Daniel Cretton and Kevin Feige just really wanting to get away from kid Peter Parker, right? Like, where they really want to completely separate themselves from Mr. Stark, Mr. Strange, Mr. Doctor Strange, Mr. Fury, right? Like, oh, I'm trying to, be a kid, but also be Spider-Man. And yes, college is different, for sure. There are differences with being in college. But I can respect them just wanting to be like, nah, we'll just make him an adult. Because also, how old is Tom Holland at this point? I think he's like 32, isn't he? Let's see, Tom Holland. He is... okay, he's 29. So, I mean, he can obviously still play a college kid, like, let's be real. But he's 29. He's going to be 30 pretty soon. I also totally understand the thought process behind, let's just make him an adult at this point and not have his age be like a central focus to his character. But yeah, so some of the other stuff here, I think it's interesting that there's going to be like an air of mystery to this one, right? Where it's like, hey, there are these crimes that are being committed, and we're gonna see Peter investigate it, and he's gonna eventually find out that either Tombstone or whatever is really pulling the strings or whatever. I think that's fun. I wonder, like, there's so many rumors around this movie that, by the way, I don't really feel like talking about them. I'm actually really grappling with how I want to handle rumors and like leaks and plot leaks and stuff, because it really does feel like basically the entire plot of Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day are gonna end up getting leaked for whatever reason. They just like refuse to put out like there are things that we basically kind of know about Spider-Man Brand New Day, and it's like, I wish that Sony would just put out a trailer confirming some of this stuff so that we can talk about it openly. And I'm kind of struggling of like, do I cover it on the channel? Do I not? Because I've tried not to look into it too deeply. It's like, I don't know, it feels kind of icky to like spoil stuff for people. I don't know. It's just, I don't like the environment, okay, of Doomsday and Brand New Day where things are getting leaked. You watch, like, there are like a decent amount of YouTubers that are like, oh, I know what happens in Spider-Man or in Avengers Doomsday. I know all the plot details and stuff. It's like, it's annoying. But listen, we'll see. I think I might just start covering them, because the reality is that if I learn about something and it's already spoiled for myself, I might as well do what everybody else is doing and just get the clicks and cover it. Like, why not? Like, YouTubers much bigger than me are like spreading this information. So we'll see. I think my rule is probably going to end up being that from this point forward, if I end up learning about something, I'll probably just talk about it. But we'll see. Either way, I like the idea of Spider-Man having to solve a mystery and there being like twists and turns and whatnot. Like I wonder if it'll be like a crime syndicate or something that Tombstone is leading, and it like starts off by him having to like stop the Punisher or something, and then the webs just get pulled and it all unravels, and he's fighting Kingpin and Daredevil is there and yada yada. By the way, I've not heard that Daredevil or Kingpin are going to be in this movie. That's literally just something I pulled out of my ass as an example, just to be clear. But let's see. There was also something else here, right? Oh, I find it interesting that they keep on referring to him as a neighborhood hero. So it seems like this this movie is really going to focus on him being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which I think is cool. I think it was something that they kind of did in Homecoming, but then obviously in Far From Home he was off in like France or Italy or whatever. And then in No Way Home, that wasn't that big of an aspect of it. It seems like if he's going to be unraveling a mystery in his city, then that is they're probably going to deal with him being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man way more deeply, which is definitely something that I would like to see. All right, next up, let's talk about this whole situation with Steven Soderbergh still talking about his Star Wars movie. There's some interesting stuff, and it definitely is making me reflect on some stuff. So let's get into it. This is in an interview with BK Mag. Let me just position it a bit better here. Okay, there we go. Since you brought up Star Wars, I was reading the Kathleen Kennedy exit interview again before we got on the call. I think what surprised a lot of people from the outside was that it appears it was basically a green light. And then essentially the head of Disney kills it for story reasons, which has never stopped them from doing anything in the Star Wars universe. And I was wondering if that elucidated anything for you. Did you know how disappointed she was? So it says, no, it was no surprise that she was frustrated. We were all frustrated. That was 2.5 years of free work for me and Adam and Rebecca Blunt. When Adam and I discussed him talking about it publicly, I said, look, do not editorialize or speculate about why. Just say what happened, because all we know is what happened. The stated reason was, we don't think Ben Solo could be alive. And that was all we were told, and so there's nothing to do about it, except move on. And as I posted, I'd kind of made the movie in my head, and just felt bad that nobody else was going to get to see it. I thought the conversation was strictly going to be a practical one, where they go, what is this going to cost? And I had a really good answer for that, but it never even got to that point. It's insane. We're all very disappointed. So obviously, Steven Soderbergh disappointed that he didn't get to make this movie that he was working on for a long time. But the thing that I find most interesting about that quote is it kind of seems like Disney themselves, like the executives above Kathleen Kennedy, was way more involved in Star Wars than I necessarily would have thought. Like, I've always thought, like, oh, this is all Kathleen Kennedy. Like, she's in charge, she's making decisions, and Bob Iger and the executives above her probably aren't getting involved too much, because that's how I've interpreted it with, like, Kevin Feige and Marvel. But it kind of seems to be the case that Kathleen Kennedy did not have carte blanche to do whatever she wanted, right? Like, and let me be clear. Obviously, executives are always involved to a certain extent, right? They're going to approve or deny budgets, yada, yada, yada. But I didn't realize that they were so involved that they were like, we're going to get involved in the creative, right? Like, hey, it doesn't make any sense for Kylo Ren to come back because he died. I don't know. For whatever reason, I just never really thought that, like, the studio executives at Disney cared about the minutia of the story like that. That is surprising to me. And so I'm not going to lie. It does make me reevaluate some of my frustrations with Kathleen Kennedy a bit, because maybe not everything was entirely her fault. At the end of the day, I don't think she was the right person for the job, but is when it comes to some of my like key frustrations, right? Like the fact that they haven't been able to make a movie since like 2019. Is that all Kathleen Kennedy's fault? Or can you also blame the executives above her for them maybe getting in the way of some of these movies, right? Maybe they got in the way of not just Steven Soderbergh, maybe they got in the way of the James Mangold movie because they didn't approve of certain things. Maybe they got in the way of who else was running to direct a movie? The Ray movie, right? The fucking Taika Waititi movie. Like, maybe whereas Kathleen Kennedy, like, maybe it's the case that Kathleen Kennedy with a lot of these movies are like, yeah, let's just make it. We need to make something, right? Let's make it. Maybe it's the case that the executives at Disney, because of what happened with The Last Jedi, because of what happened with The Rise of Skywalker, maybe they are just insanely hesitant on moving forward with the movie. And obviously that can have its pros and cons, right? Like, you probably should, let's be real. After Thor Love and Thunder, and in my opinion, Thor Ragnarok, you probably shouldn't let Taika Waititi have full carte blanche on a on a Star Wars movie, right? Like, if you are going to have Taika Waititi direct a Star Wars movie, and there's reasons as to why you probably shouldn't do that, but if you are going to do it, you're probably going to have some restrictions, right? But maybe it's the case that James Mangold's Star Wars movie, maybe he has a really good script, a really good idea for it. Maybe Steven Soderbergh's script was really great. And sure, there is that barrier of it's Kylo Ren. You know, he already died. Do we want to bring back somebody back to life again? Because that obviously didn't go over last time. Like, maybe it's the case that some of these scripts and some of these stories and some of these visions that these directors had, maybe they were great. And the executives at Lucasfilm just didn't want to take a risk. Because being too risk averse can also hamper great movies that fans could rally behind. And at the end of the day, there's no denying that whoever's to blame ultimately, right? Wait, maybe it is all Kathleen Kennedy, maybe it is all the studio executives, maybe it's the most likely option, and it's a little bit of both. Regardless of who's fully to blame or not to blame, Star Wars has been at a standstill since 2019. And excuse me if I'm not all that jazzed about Free Guy and Deadpool and Wolverine director being the guy that's coming back to quote-unquote save Star Wars. I mean, yes, I know The Mandalorian and Grogu come out, but I think most people are viewing that as a TV movie. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that movie makes like $800 to $1 billion, and it is the movie that really like brings back Star Wars to the big screen. I doubt it. I think it's going to land, you know, in like the $400-500 million range, and then Starfighter is going to be the one that gets the big push. But regardless, I the fact that it seems like the projects that are getting in motion are The Mandalorian and Grogu, which looks like the safest possible movie of all time, right? You look at the Mandalorian situation in general. The Mandalorian, or not the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett was the moment that I truly stopped being invested in Star Wars. Because when they made the clearly, just blatantly obvious cynical decision to undo that emotional ending of The Mandalorian Season 2 of separating Mando and Grogu, right? Mando making that incredibly difficult and emotional decision to, you know, do the responsible thing of handing off Grogu to train to be a Jedi with Luke. The fact that they not only undid that in general, right, so soon after you made that decision, but you didn't even have the tact and decency to undo it in The Mandalorian Season 3. You did it on another guy's show, completely derailing that guy's show, right? Taking away screen time to potentially salvage that show, because that, I mean, well, to be fair, that show was not doing very much on its own anyways. But you're doing it on the Boba Fett show? And you're clearly just doing it because the executives were like, I'm sorry, you separated Mandalorian and Grogu? You're going to do a season 3 potentially without Grogu? No. You must bring them back together immediately. Like, you can tell that that's what happened. And so I can't help but read this Soderbergh interview and have it all really just click into place that you look at The Mandalorian and Grogu, and that being the movie that got through this clearly like studio executive, like they're paying attention to the stories, like they're heavily paying attention to the stories that are being told. And we're getting The Mandalorian and Grogu, where we have a Grogu that's barely matured since season 1, is still just acting like a dumb baby. And, you know, Mando and Grogu, they're going on another adventure. It looks like it's going to be fine, but you'd think that after 3 seasons and now going into their movie, these characters would have developed a little more. You know what I mean? You know, listen, hopefully I'm wrong. I just don't believe that the director of Free Guy and, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine is going to come out and make an amazing Star Wars movie. I feel like Starfighter is going to be fine at best. Now look, maybe they hire a great director for the Kinberg trilogy, but Kinberg's another one of these guys that he's going to come along and he's probably going to make a movie that's fine at best. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I feel. And just seeing the fact that they rejected Soderbergh, right? The Mangold movie is in development hell. Donald Glover making a Lando movie. I'll be honest, that doesn't seem like the best financial decision. But at least could be interesting. It's like all the potentially interesting stuff that they're seemingly turning away or is just being put on the back burner. It's being done so that we can bring in the most bland filmmakers working today to make just incredibly safe slop that's probably being designed to just not upset people. That's what it feels like. So, anyways, kind of got away from the whole Soderbergh aspect of it all, but he's one part of this cog of Star Wars thoughts that have been ruminating in my head. Let me know what you think. Do you think that Kathleen Kennedy's all to blame? Do you think that part of the blame here is probably on the executives above her? And then do you ultimately agree with me that it's probably a mixture of both? And that, let's be real, Dave Filoni does not have the saying power of Kathleen Kennedy, right? Like, if Kathleen Kennedy was being bossed around by Disney executives, Dave Filoni is being kicked around like a football. So we'll see. Hopefully everything is great. Hopefully all movies for the rest of time are good. That's all we can hope for, isn't it? All right. So next up, let's talk about Avengers Secret Wars potentially being split up into 2 different movies. So this was a rumor that then got debunked. Kind of. So let's get into it. So, hold on. Let me see if I can get this to look better and more full and stuff. We're doing this on the fly, guys. Okay, I think that looks okay. All right. Alex Perez recently weighed in during a Cosmic Circus Q&A. So this rumor originally came from the Cosmic Circus. And he seems to feel that there is a very high chance that Secret Wars will ultimately become 2 movies. Secret Wars was scheduled to begin shooting this summer, but Perez indicated that production could end up being delayed as the project has now entered a conditional start phase. Apparently, this means that Marvel cannot legally film anything for Secret Wars until a new verification of the contract is achieved. In the few instances that this has happened, it's because there has been a massive shift from what the production was originally looking like. For example, like one film now being split into 2 parts. So despite these reports, industry insider Jeff Schneider doesn't see it happening. As of right now, Marvel is not planning to split Avengers Secret Wars into 2 films. he writes in this week's newsletter. That may have been mentioned by someone somewhere along the chain of power, but it's not being seriously discussed in Burbank due to the difficulty of scheduling the enormous cast, not to mention the prospect of having to pay Robert Downey Jr.'s even more enormous salary again. So, this is a weird one, right? The story has been circulating around. It hasn't been reported on by any of the major outlets, right? None of them have weighed in being like, actually, this is happening. So I'm more inclined to believe Schneider than I am the Cosmic Circus, just because, I'm more aware of Jeff Schneider. I'm more aware of him being right about stuff. And I mean, I will say this. I think that if they are going to split Secret Wars into 2 parts, I don't think they would make that decision until after Doomsday comes out. Because you can't commit to making a third of these movies if you don't have the confidence that they're going to be profitable, right? Because they're hoping, right, that Avengers Doomsday comes out and makes $2 billion. Over $2 billion. I think it will. Because, Spider-Man No Way Home made 1.9. You have to assume that Avengers Doomsday will beat that with the return of Robert Downey Jr., with the return of Chris Evans, with a lot of the OG Marvel cast crossing over with the Fox X-Men. Like, you never know. Like, to be clear, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm not saying I've heard this anywhere. But, like, for all we know, like, Tobey Maguire or Hugh Jackman as Wolverine could show up in this thing. So, like, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that, yes, this movie is going to be successful and make $2 billion. But I don't think you want to commit to splitting Secret Wars into 2 movies if Avengers Doomsday comes out and makes, like, 1.5. But we'll see. We shall see. All right, next up, we have a bit of a rumor that Jacob Elordi may be playing an X-Men. So it's coming from My Time to Shine. It says here in this article, there have been a few casting rumors, none of which seem to have much merit. This is from comicbookmovie.com. So it's interesting that they're saying that this rumor does not have much merit. The latest comes our way from at My Time to Shine. Hello. Who reports that Jacob Elordi is also very high on Marvel's list for an X-Men role. So I kind of, normally I don't talk about these kinds of stories, but I kind of just wanted to bring it up because our last story of the day is going to highlight how dubious so many of these scooper reports are, right? And this is just such a good example of one of them, right? Jacob Elordi is high on Marvel's list for an X-Men role. And it's just like, yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure that Jacob Elordi, one of the hottest actors in Hollywood right now, is being talked about in Marvel, is on a list somewhere as potentially playing like a superhero character, whether it be Marvel or DC. Like, yeah. But it's the kind of scoop where it's like, why are you reporting on this as if it's like a big deal? It's like, I feels like somebody like My Time to Shine is going like, if I make this scoop, if I report this, then people who don't think about these things as seriously as I do, they're going to look at these types of scoops and go, ooh, it looks like Jacob Elordi is like in talks to be in a Marvel movie. When if you just read exactly what it says, it's the most non-story of all time. Jacob Elordi is high on a list to be in an X-Men movie. It's like, yes, so is Glenn Powell. So is all the other hot actors in Hollywood right now. Yeah, I mean, look, obviously Jacob Elordi, he'd probably be good in an X-Men movie, whether it be, I don't know, Cyclops, Colossus, probably not Wolverine. Okay, We shall not go back to tall Wolverine, guys. Okay, we need a short king. We need a short king as Wolverine. I think my biggest pick for Jacob Elordi would actually be Gambit. I think it would be a good Gambit. But anyways, this story I kind of want to then lead into our next story, our last story of the day, the title story of the video. James Gunn went on a debunking spree. So, and it is just very funny how, at the end of the day, guys, and this is my personal stance. This is how I tend to treat these things. If it's not coming from the horse's mouth, if it's not coming from one of the major trades, we can talk about it, and I talk about these rumors all the time, right? But don't take it to heart, right? Don't take it as fact. So James Gunn went on a debunking spree on Threads today. So we're just going to go through this post here. So he did an innocuous post about movie posters. So then there was a rumor. I don't even know where this came from, but it says, "Is it true that Man of Tomorrow starts filming in a few weeks?" So then James Gunn says, "By a strict definition of few, no." So it looks like, and by the way, I didn't look into a lot of this stuff because who cares at this point, because James Gunn debunked it. So he says, no, right? Somebody reported that Man of Tomorrow is going to start filming in a few weeks, right? When I hear few, I think 2 to 3. So no, it seems like Man of Tomorrow is not going to start filming for at least another month, probably more, based on what James Gunn is saying. So there was another report, right, saying, "Oh, there's going to be a change in the title of the movie." James Gunn just says, "Nope." There was another report from a scooper. I think this one was Daniel RPK, if I remember correctly. It says, "Is it true you're waiting for the Batman trilogy to finish before releasing the DCU Batman movie?" He just says, "Nope." And yeah, I actually do remember this is one of the stories that I was looking into earlier in the week. It was a big talking point of the week that James Gunn was going to fast track the DCU, or not the DCU, the Matt Reeves Batman trilogy. Obviously Matt Reeves is currently working on the Batman Part 2, and then he was going to pressure Matt Reeves to make the Batman Part 3 more quickly so that we can get the Robert Pattinson Batman trilogy out of the way. And it's not until the Robert Pattinson Batman trilogy gets out of the way that we would eventually get our DCU Batman movie. It was this whole spiel that got built up. And according to James Gunn, no, it's just not true, right? As of right now, according to James Gunn, the plan is that Matt Reeves is making his Batman stuff, and in between, Matt Reeves' Batman movies, we are also going to get DCU Batman movies. And then there was another report. This one was from John Roca, actually. Is it true that Paradise Lost is shelved? And then James Gunn says, definitely not. Jesus, I go on Threads for the first time in weeks, and it's just one insanely wrong thing after the other. And interesting. Oh, okay. Oh, it looks like James Gunn actually responded directly to more stuff here. So, okay, I'm reading this stuff for the first time. But anyways, yeah. So it looks like, well, hold on. Before I move on to the next thing, James Gunn is sitting here saying, well, yeah, because John Roca came out and reported on a show that he heard from sources that Paradise Lost was shelved. And listen, I actually really like John Roca, just to be clear. But I hope I clarified this properly on the when I was covering his report last week, where I said, hey, listen, John Roca, he's gotten stuff right in the past, but it's not coming from the major trades. It's not coming from Warner Brothers themselves. Don't take it as gospel, right? Take it with a grain of salt. So John Roca last week reported that Paradise Lost has been canceled. Now James Gunn is saying that it hasn't been. So I mean, look. Well, hold on. I'll address what I was about to address after I finish reading this. So let's see what's going on in this tweet thread here. For whatever reasons, DC fans in particular are susceptible to believing any rumor that comes out. The one that baffles me the most is the Batman Brave and the Bold one, because even the dude that supposedly said that debunked it. James Gunn, so Daniel Richtman, he said himself, James Gunn won't introduce DCU's Batman until Matt Reeves' trilogy is finished. Huh? That's not what I said. So then James Gunn asked, do you know what he actually said? Okay, so I guess this is an article posting quotes from Daniel RPK's thing. Okay, let's just read this. Insider Daniel RPK revealed that the Brave and the Bold might not arrive anytime soon, while James Gunn wants the Batman 3 out faster. Oh, I am told Batman Brave and the Bold is not coming for years, Daniel stated during a Discord discussion. Gunn is pushing to get the Batman 3 out faster. He wants that trilogy over. What? Gunn is pushing to get the Batman 3 out faster. He wants that trilogy over. He wants to move on. Doesn't want two Batmans. So then James Gunn says, that's incorrect. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's incorrect that Daniel RPK was told that, but the information is incorrect. Wait, if that's a quote, okay. Dude, this is, this is getting confusing. If Daniel RPK like wrote these things that are in quotations, right? Quoting Daniel RPK. If Daniel RPK said that, he is saying that James Gunn won't introduce. Oh, hold on. He said that the Brave and the Bold won't come out until the Reeves Batman trilogy is ended. That's not the same as saying that the DCU Batman won't get introduced. Okay, I understand where the confusion was. Regardless, James Gunn is now coming out and saying that no. The plan at the moment is still to release DCU Batman movies amongst the Matt Reeves Batman trilogy. So, okay. The other point that I was going to make. So James Gunn has come out and debunked a bunch of stuff. There is also the reality that people are kind of starting to lose trust in James Gunn. I mean, listen, it feels like something that's been happening over the course of the past year. I think a lot of it has to do with people being maybe underwhelmed by the content, right? People were not stoked about Creature Commandos starting off the DCU. I think Superman was received mostly positively, but you know, there were a decent amount of people who didn't like the movie. I think you then have to look at Peacemaker Season 2. Overall, I enjoyed the season. I don't disagree that the finale was kind of a mess, even though I still, like, the emotional beats hit for me in the season finale. But still not the strongest. And, you know, James Gunn, he's been caught in some fibs, right? Like, most recently, you had Ted Sarandos contradicting James Gunn when he was testifying in front of Congress or whatever, right? Because one of the big controversies was that Superman was put on PVOD, I think, after 35 days instead of the 45 days. And at the time, James Gunn was saying that they did that because they wanted it to be out on PVOD so that everybody could have a chance to watch it before watching Peacemaker Season 2. That's what he stated the reason was. And then in Congress, when Ted Sarandos was testifying, so you know he can't be lying, he basically indicated that, no. Superman was released on PVOD earlier because the movie underperformed. I mean, that's what he said. Now, I've seen some people make some arguments since then, and I can understand why you would interpret it that way. Like, you could interpret it as Ted Sarandos making the point that movies can come out of theatrical exclusivity if it underperforms, and then maybe he used Superman as an example, not necessarily because it underperformed, but just because it's an example of a movie that was released earlier than the 45-day window. I can see why you would interpret it that way. I don't know. I think he said it underperformed. I don't know. I feel like that's reasonable. But I don't think it's the most ridiculous argument for somebody to put out. But either way, it's things like that, right? that are kind of making people start lose faith in James Gunn and in his honesty, right? So I've seen a decent amount of people now that James Gunn comes out and explicitly says that Paradise Lost is not canceled. I've seen a decent amount of people just come out and straight up say, I don't believe you. Right? I've seen a decent amount of people straight up say that they don't believe him when he says that there's going to be a DCU movie in between, or a DCU Batman movie in between the Batman Part 2 and the Batman Part 3. So at the end of the day, people can say whatever they want. Things are either going to happen or they're not going to happen, right? You can say that Paradise Lost hasn't been canceled. The show's either going to come out or it's not, right? You can say that we're going to get a DCU Batman movie before Matt Reeves is done with his Robert Pattinson Batman trilogy. It's either going to happen or it's not, right? So we're going to have to wait and see. But there's no denying that James Gunn has lost some of the faith that people had in his word, basically. So we'll see. I tend to believe him. Like, I feel like even when James Gunn is caught in fibs, I feel like it's usually not as explicit as this. Aside from the Ted Sarandos thing. That was pretty explicit. I'm trying to think of other examples. I can't off the top of my head. But I feel like it's usually stuff where James Gunn will, like, give himself, like, a little bit of an out. Where it's like, I was indicating this, and then it turned out to be this. But I wasn't explicitly saying that was going to happen. I'm sorry, I can't think of something off the top of my head. I'm doing a live stream, guys. I feel like if he's explicitly saying that Paradise Lost isn't canceled, I feel like that's probably true. I feel like if he's explicitly saying that the Batman, that the DCU Batman is going to coincide along with the Matt Reeves Batman, he's like explicitly saying it. He's explicitly saying that, you know, what specific scoopers are saying isn't true. It's like, I'm inclined to believe it, but we'll see. We will see. All right. That's going to be it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what you think about any and all of the stories discussed, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. Goodbye.